In the town of Nkamba, Bayo lived in a small, neat house with his wife, Amina. Bayo was a careful man when it came to money. He kept every coin he earned and never liked spending it on anyone, not even on Amina. She cooked, cleaned, and took care of the house while he focused on his small business, a shop selling grains and vegetables. Amina often asked for small things like new shoes or ingredients for a special dish, but Bayo always replied, "We cannot afford that." She learned to smile and accept his stinginess, hiding her disappointment. One night after a long day of work, Bayo sat in his small room, checking messages on his phone. He had been talking secretly to a woman named Zina, who lived in the neighboring town. She often sent him messages asking for money to buy clothes or pay bills. Bayo had always been careful, sending just small amounts, but that night she demanded a larger sum, more than he usually gave. Bayo was tired. His eyes were heavy and his mind wandered. He wanted to quickly send the money and go to sleep. He opened his banking app and typed the account number he had memorized, not noticing that the number he entered was slightly different. He typed in the amount and pressed send. The next morning, the sun rose over Nkamba, casting golden light on the small houses and streets. Amina woke early, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. She checked her phone before starting work as she usually did, to see messages from friends and payments from her small tailoring jobs. When she opened her banking app, her eyes widened in shock. There, at the top of her account, was a huge sum of money, far more than she had ever seen in her life. Amina blinked, thinking she must be mistaken. She checked again. The number had not changed. She scrolled through her recent transactions and saw that the money had come from Bayo's account. Her heart pounded. How could he send her so much? She knew Bayo was careful with money and never spent freely on anyone. Her first thought was confusion, then curiosity. She wondered if it was a mistake. Maybe the bank had made an error. Or maybe Bayo had changed overnight and decided to surprise her. Amina thought about returning the money immediately, but something inside told her to wait. She wanted to see how Bayo would react. Meanwhile, Bayo had already left for the shop, thinking about Zina. He planned to call her and confirm that she had received the money. His hands shook as he opened his phone. He saw the notification from the bank, but instead of confirming Zina's account, it showed a message that said the transaction had been completed. Panic struck him like a cold wind. He quickly checked the number he had sent it to and froze. His heart sank when he realized the mistake. The money had gone to Amina, his wife. Bayo's mind raced. He imagined Amina seeing the money, wondering if she knew about his secret affair. He imagined her confronting him or questioning him. A cold sweat ran down his back. He wanted to call her immediately, but he feared her reaction. What if she shouted? What if she went to the neighbors and told everyone about his affair? The thought of shame made him tremble. At home, Amina sat quietly at the small wooden table, staring at her phone. She did not scream or cry. She simply sat, breathing slowly, thinking. She had always wished for more money to help the family, to buy better food, or to repair the roof of the house. Now all of a sudden the money was there. She felt a mix of excitement and caution. She did not want to seem greedy or cause trouble. After a while she decided to test Bayo. When he returned from the shop, she smiled softly and said, "Bayo, I saw the money you sent." "Thank you." Bayo froze. He did not know what to say. I thought it was for someone else," he muttered, looking at her nervously. Amina tilted her head slightly and asked calmly, "Someone else?" She did not raise her voice or accuse him angrily. She just spoke with quiet curiosity. Bayo swallowed hard, his face red. He realized she had understood part of the truth but had not made a scene. He could feel the weight of his mistake pressing down on him. The room felt silent for a long moment. Outside, birds sang and the sun shone warmly, but inside, Bayo could not move. Amina looked at him, her eyes soft yet full of wisdom. She said slowly, "If this money was meant for me, I will use it wisely. If it was meant for someone else, we need to talk." Bayo nodded, realizing he had no choice but to confess. He told her about Zina, about the message, and about the mistake. He expected shouting, tears, and anger. But Amina listened quietly. She let him speak and did not interrupt. When he finished, she sighed softly, not in anger but in disappointment. "I see," she said finally. "You wanted to give money to someone else, but it came to me instead. Perhaps this is a lesson for you, and for both of us." Her voice was calm but firm. Bayo felt a strange mix of fear and relief. Fear because she had discovered the truth, and relief because she had not shamed him in front of the neighbors. Amina thought about the money. She decided to use it for the family first, to repair the roof, buy new utensils, and help her younger brother with his school fees. She wanted to show Beo that money should be used wisely, not hidden or wasted. She smiled softly, knowing that she was teaching him a lesson about responsibility and honesty. Beo watched her carefully. He had intended to send the money secretly to impress someone else, but now he saw that Amina's wisdom and calmness were far stronger than any gifts he could offer another woman. He realized he had been selfish and careless, and the weight of guilt pressed on him. That day, for the first time, Beo understood the value of honesty, respect, and appreciation for his wife. Amina had turned his mistake into a lesson, not with anger or shouting but with calm wisdom. He promised himself silently that he would change, and that he would no longer be stingy or foolish with money. From that morning on, Amina's small, careful smile had more power than any argument or punishment. The accidental money transfer had become a turning point in their lives. It showed that mistakes could lead to reflection, and that kindness and intelligence were stronger than anger or greed. And so, the quiet town of Nkumba witnessed a day when a careless mistake revealed the true value of a patient, wise heart. Amina, calm and thoughtful, held her family's future in her hands, while Beo, ashamed yet grateful, began to understand that money alone cannot fix love, only honesty, care, and respect can. In the town of Nkumba, the morning sun shone warmly over the small houses, but inside Amina's home, her mind was busy with thoughts about the unexpected money. She held her phone gently, staring at the huge sum displayed on the screen. The amount was more than she had ever imagined receiving in her life, and yet she felt a mix of wonder and caution. A part of her wanted to call Beo and ask why he had sent it, but another part of her thought maybe it was a gift, a sign that he had changed. Amina walked slowly to the window, looking at the children playing in the street. She imagined all the ways she could use the money wisely, repair the leaking roof, buy new utensils for cooking, and help her younger brother pay for school. Still, her mind was cautious. She knew Beo was careful with money and rarely spent freely, so this sudden windfall felt strange. Could it really be meant for me? She whispered softly to herself. Meanwhile, Beo sat at his small shop, counting coins and keeping track of the day's sales. His phone vibrated constantly with messages from the woman he was secretly seeing. He opened one and froze. She had asked for the money, but it had not reached her account. He reread the number, checked the transaction, and his heart sank. The money had gone to Amina. A cold sweat ran down his back. He tried to think quickly. Should he call Amina immediately? Should he tell her it was a mistake? His thoughts raced in every direction. He could picture her face when she realized the money was from him, and he feared the questions, the shouting, and the embarrassment. Worse, he worried about the woman he had been seeing. What would she think when she discovered that the money had not arrived? At home, Amina paced slowly around the small living room. She felt the weight of the money in her account and the responsibility it carried. She wondered if it was truly meant for her or if it was some mistake from the bank. Her mind was calm, but curiosity bubbled beneath the surface. She imagined the conversation she could have with Beo, but she decided to wait and see how he would react. Patience had always been her way. She thought about returning the money immediately, thinking it might be wrong to keep it if it was not meant for her. But she hesitated. Perhaps Beo had made a mistake but wanted to surprise her, or maybe fate had played a strange trick. She decided to wait a little while before making any decisions, wanting to see the outcome first. Beo, on the other hand, could not focus on work. He kept glancing at his phone, imagining Amina opening her banking app and seeing the sum. Panic and guilt twisted inside him. He tried to call the woman he had intended to send the money to, but the line went unanswered. His mind raced faster, realizing that he had not only failed the woman he was seeing but had also unintentionally given a huge amount to his wife. Every minute seemed to stretch endlessly. Beo imagined Amina laughing at his mistake or asking questions he could not answer. He feared that she might accuse him of cheating or mocking her. The anxiety tightened around his chest and he found it hard to breathe. Back at home, Amina thought about the money again. She realized it could be a test, a chance to see how Beo would react. She thought about using it wisely for the family, helping those in need and repairing the house. Her heart leaned toward generosity and patience rather than confrontation. She wanted to teach Beo a lesson quietly, that honesty, care, and proper use of money were more important than secrecy or selfishness. Hours passed slowly. Beo finally decided to return home early, his mind heavy with worry. He rehearsed what he would say, imagining excuses, apologies, and explanations. Every step toward home felt like carrying a heavy weight of fear and guilt. When he entered the small living room, Amina was sitting calmly, her phone in hand. She looked at him without anger, her eyes calm but curious. "Beo," she said softly, "I saw the money you sent. Tell me, why is it here? Her voice was steady, carrying neither accusation nor panic. Beo froze. The words hit him harder than any shouting could have. He stammered, I thought it was meant for someone else. He felt his face grow hot and sweat run down his back. His careful plan, his secret, and now the mistake, all collided at once. Amina listened quietly. She did not interrupt or raise her voice. She let him speak, letting his words flow out. Beo confessed about the woman, about the message, and about the mistaken transfer. He expected anger, tears, and shouting, but Amina remained calm. She sat quietly, absorbing every word without judgment. Finally she spoke. I see, she said gently. You wanted to give money to another, but it came to me instead. Perhaps this is a lesson for both of us. Her voice was calm yet firm. Beo felt a strange mix of fear and relief. Fear because she had discovered the truth, and relief because she had not shouted or humiliated him. Amina's calmness and wisdom began to teach Beo a lesson that no shouting or punishment could. He realized that his mistake had shown the value of honesty, patience, and trust. She had turned a careless action into a chance to reflect and learn. Beo looked at Amina, feeling the weight of his guilt. He understood that money alone could not secure love, respect, or trust. Her patience and intelligence were far more valuable than the wealth he had tried to hide or give elsewhere. That day the quiet town of Nkumba saw a turning point. Amina's calm wisdom, patience, and careful thought had changed the course of her family. The accidental money transfer, meant to please another, had become a lesson in honesty, love, and the true use of wealth. Amina decided to use the money for the family's good, repairing the roof, buying utensils, and supporting her brother's schooling. She showed that wisdom, patience, and foresight were stronger than anger or greed. Beo watched her, realizing for the first time that he had underestimated his wife's mind and heart. He promised himself silently that he would never be careless or stingy again. He would no longer hide money or use it to impress others. And so, the day that began with a careless mistake ended with understanding and reflection. Amina had turned a potential conflict into a quiet lesson of patience, intelligence, and the true meaning of care, while Beo began to learn the true value of honesty and love. That morning in Nkumba, the sun shone brightly, but inside Beo and Amina's small home, tension hung thickly in the air. Amina sat on the woven mat in their living room, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her eyes calm but sharp. She held her phone with the bank notification open, staring at the large sum of money that had appeared overnight. The coins and bills were real, yet they carried more weight than their monetary value. They held questions, secrets, and truths waiting to surface. Beo entered the house slowly, his steps hesitant, his heart pounding in his chest. He had spent the entire morning rehearsing what he might say, imagining every possible reaction Amina could have. He had expected anger, shouting, maybe even tears, but the sight of Amina sitting quietly, almost regal in her calm, made him freeze. His throat felt dry and a nervous sweat formed on his forehead. Amina looked up at him steadily and asked simply, Beo, why did this money come to me? Her voice was soft, but it carried a weight that made Beo stumble over his thoughts. He had no escape. No clever lies or excuses would work now. Beo took a shaky breath. I thought it was meant for someone else, he admitted. His voice was low, almost a whisper, but the confession hung heavy in the small room. He avoided her eyes, afraid of what he would see there. Amina's gaze softened but did not lose its sharpness. She leaned slightly forward, her voice calm and measured. Someone else? Who? She asked, her words steady, leaving no room for evasion. Beo swallowed hard. His lips trembled as he finally muttered, Her. The woman I've been seeing. The words felt like a weight falling from his chest, but at the same time, they seemed to multiply the tension in the room. Amina's eyes widened slightly at first, a flicker of surprise crossing her features. Yet she did not shout or throw anything. She did not cry or slam her hand against the wall. She remained seated, calm, letting the moment stretch long enough for Beo to feel the full weight of his actions. Then, in a voice that was both gentle and firm, Amina asked, If you could give her this money, why never me? Her question was quiet but cut through Beo like a knife. It was not just about the money, it was about years of neglect, unspoken disappointments, and the absence of appreciation he had shown her. Beo's face turned pale. His lips parted but no words came out. Shame and embarrassment flooded him. For the first time he felt the sting of regret so deeply that it left him speechless. He had always considered himself clever, careful with money, and in control of his household, but here, he realized how little he had truly valued Amina. The silence stretched on, heavy and electric. Amina's calmness made Beo squirm. He could feel the judgments in her eyes, the quiet disappointment that no amount of apology could immediately erase. His mistake, sending money to another woman, now forced him to confront the consequences of his past stinginess, neglect and selfishness. Amina continued, her voice steady, "I have stood by you, worked with you, supported you, and yet you thought someone else deserved this more than me?" She did not shout, but every word carried the weight of truth, each syllable a mirror reflecting his failures. Beo finally bowed his head, unable to look her in the eyes. I was careless. I didn't think. I was wrong," he whispered, his voice cracking. The embarrassment burned hot, but in that heat he also felt a sense of awakening. He understood, finally, that money alone could never buy love, trust, or respect. Amina watched him, her calm strength making the room feel larger than it was. She could have yelled or screamed or demanded he take the money back immediately, but instead she allowed him to feel the weight of his own mistakes. She let him learn the lesson without humiliation, a lesson in shame, honesty, and the value of care. For a long moment they sat in silence. Beo's mind replayed every stingy action, every neglectful word, every time he had underestimated her worth. He realized that the money he had sent by mistake had become more than a financial error, it had become a revelation, forcing him to see the consequences of his selfishness. Amina finally spoke again, her tone softer but resolute. "Beo, this money came to me by mistake, but it reminds us both of something important. Care for each other. Respect each other. Money is nothing if hearts are empty." Beo's throat tightened. He nodded slowly, swallowing hard. The sting of embarrassment lingered, but within it grew a seed of understanding. He realized he had been blind not just in wealth but in love. Amina had opened his eyes without shouting, without anger, only with calm wisdom. That day Beo understood the true weight of his mistake. He promised himself silently, with the shame still burning, that he would never underestimate Amina again. He would not only apologize with words but also act with respect, care and appreciation, not just for her but for the life they shared together. Amina, on her part, decided to be patient, letting him learn fully from his error. She planned to use the money wisely, to improve their home, help her family, and perhaps teach him the value of generosity that stems from thoughtfulness, not carelessness. By evening, the tension had faded into a quiet understanding. Beo had learned the painful lesson of his greed and thoughtlessness, while Amina's calmness had turned a potentially humiliating situation into a learning moment for her husband. The mistake, once a source of embarrassment and shame, had become a turning point in their marriage, one where honesty, patience and insight won over fear and deceit. And so, part 3 ended with Beo humbled and reflecting, Amina strong and patient, and the household of Nkumba on the verge of a quiet but meaningful transformation, where mistakes became lessons and love began to grow in understanding. That evening the air in Nkumba's small home felt different, heavy with reflection but also lighter with understanding. Beo sat on the wooden bench in their modest living room, his hands clasped together, eyes fixed on the floor. The weight of shame pressed on his chest, making him acutely aware of every mistake he had made over the years. His stinginess, his carelessness with money, and the betrayal of trust through his secret affair all seemed to rise up, demanding attention. Amina entered the room quietly, carrying a small notebook where she had begun planning how to use the money wisely. Her face was calm, but her eyes held a quiet strength that made Beo's stomach twist with both fear and admiration. She placed the notebook gently on the table and sat across from him, folding her hands in her lap. "I forgive you, Beo," she said softly, her voice steady. "But forgiveness is not forgetting. You must show me and yourself that you are ready to change." Beo looked up, his eyes meeting hers, and saw the seriousness in her gaze. He nodded slowly, swallowing hard. I will, Amina," he said, voice low and full of sincerity. "I will end the affair. I will stop hiding, stop being stingy. I will be honest with you, with us." Amina's lips curved slightly, not into a full smile but into a quiet acknowledgement. "Good," she replied. "Words are only proof when followed by action. From now on we live together openly, honestly and with care for each other. The money you sent by mistake will be our first lesson in generosity, something you have not understood until now." Over the next few days, Beo took deliberate steps to show change. He apologized not just with words but through actions. He helped with chores at home, asked Amina's opinion on household decisions, and started putting aside a small portion of money for family needs rather than spending secretly elsewhere. Each step, though small, felt monumental to him. Meanwhile, Amina used the money wisely. She paid off old debts that had burdened their household for years, bought seeds for their small garden, and helped a few neighbors who had fallen on hard times. She taught Bayo, gently but firmly, that wealth was more meaningful when it helped people rather than served selfish desires. The sight of Amina giving with a heart full of care left a deep impression on him. The village began to notice the change. Friends and neighbors saw a couple walking together, not in tension or argument, but in quiet cooperation. Bayo, once tight-fisted and secretive, now smiled freely when he handed a bag of food to a neighbor or helped a child carry water from the well. He felt a strange, warm pride, not the pride of possession but the pride of giving. One afternoon, as they sat together under the shade of a mango tree, Bayo reached out and held Amina's hand. "I see now," he said softly, "that love is not measured by how much you hide or spend, but by how much you care and share. You have taught me what it means to be generous in heart, not just in wealth." Amina squeezed his hand gently. "It is never too late to learn, Bayo. Mistakes can become lessons if we choose to act with humility and care. Remember, the money was only a tool. What matters is what we do with our hearts." From that day on, their home in Kumba transformed. The air felt lighter, laughter returned, and a quiet sense of peace settled over their daily lives. Bayo had learned the hard way that hidden desires and stinginess could destroy trust, while Amina had shown him that wisdom, patience, and generosity could restore it. By evening, the couple walked together to the edge of their small garden. Amina pointed to the new seedlings she had planted, each one a small symbol of growth and hope. Bayo knelt beside her, touching the soil with care, realizing that this simple act of tending the garden was as important as any sum of money. Lena, their young maid, watched silently from the doorway, smiling. She had seen the change in both Bayo and Amina and felt proud of the quiet lesson that had unfolded before her eyes. The household, once shadowed by mistakes and selfishness, now shone with humility, care, and the gentle strength of hearts aligned. And so, Part 4 ended with Bayo humbled but learning, Amina wise and generous, and the home of Nkumba filled with hope and a promise of better days, where love, trust, and generosity guided every choice. That morning, Nkumba seemed brighter than usual. Sunlight streamed into the small house of Bayo and Amina, catching the dust motes in its golden rays. Bayo, once careful with every coin, now moved about the home with a lightness in his step. He filled the kettle with water, prepared breakfast, and even swept the courtyard with quiet attentiveness. It was not perfection, but it was a start that showed he had truly begun to understand the value of care and thoughtfulness. Amina entered the kitchen carrying a basket of fresh vegetables from the garden. She noticed the small details, the table neatly set, the kettle steaming, and the smell of porridge wafting gently through the air. Her lips curved into a soft smile, not of pride, but of quiet satisfaction. She knew change was rarely instant, but it was visible in Bayo's small, consistent efforts. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning, Amina," Bayo replied, placing the last bowl on the table. I know I have caused much pain and shame. But I promise to make our life better together." Amina nodded. "Actions always speak louder than words, Bayo. I see your change. Keep going." Bayo felt a warmth in his chest he had never known before. For the first time, he understood that generosity was not about sending money in secret or flaunting wealth. It was about honesty, sharing burdens, and offering love through small, daily acts. He poured porridge into the bowls, carefully measuring portions for both of them, and even gave a little extra to the neighbor boy who had come to greet them. Outside, the village of Nkumba began to stir. Word spread quietly about the transformation in Bayo and Amina's home. People who had once whispered about his stinginess now nodded with respect when they saw him helping Amina carry firewood, giving seeds to struggling farmers, or simply walking hand in hand with her through the market. Amina, once patient in silence, now received recognition not for wealth, but for her wisdom, patience, and generosity of heart. Even the maid, Lena, noticed the change. She smiled quietly as she swept the floor, seeing a household that now moved in harmony. She had watched the events unfold, the accidental transfer of money, Bayo's shame, Amina's wise response, and finally the slow, steady change in behavior. It was a lesson she would carry with her for years, that patience, honesty, and consistent effort could transform even the most stubborn hearts. That evening, Bayo and Amina sat together under the mango tree in their small courtyard. The air smelled of fresh earth and growing plants. Bayo took Amina's hand gently. "I understand now," he said, his voice soft but full of feeling. "The money that went to you by mistake was more than just currency. It was a mirror showing me what I was missing: honesty, care, and respect. I am sorry for the years I was blind. Amina leaned her head on his shoulder. We all learn in different ways. What matters is that we grow. I forgive you, Bayo. Let this be the start of the life we both deserve, one built on love, honesty, and respect. From that day forward, Bayo no longer hid money, kept secrets, or tried to control wealth to show power. He contributed to the household openly, shared joy and labor with Amina, and even extended help to neighbors and friends. Nkumba's villagers began to see him not as a stingy man, but as one who had learned humility, generosity, and the true meaning of love. The small house that once carried tension now echoed with laughter, shared meals, and quiet contentment. Amina's patience and wisdom became known across the village, inspiring other couples to practice understanding and generosity in their own homes. And Bayo, once careless and secretive, became an example of change, showing that even mistakes can become lessons if met with honesty and humility. The accidental money transfer, which had once threatened to expose secrets and cause conflict, became the turning point for the couple. It reminded both Bayo and the villagers that wealth is not only in coins, but in the care, respect, and love we give to one another. Years later, when travelers visited Nkumba and asked about the small house of Bayo and Amina, the villagers would smile and say, "That is the home where a stingy man learned the value of a good heart, and a wise woman taught him that love is more than money." And in the quiet evenings under the mango tree, Bayo and Amina would sit together, hands entwined, feeling a peace that neither money nor power could ever buy. Their story, small as it was, became a lesson whispered among the villagers. Honesty, respect, and generosity are worth more than gold, and true love grows only when hearts are open. From then on, Nkumba remembered the tale as a reminder that even mistakes, like a mistaken transfer of money, can bring life-changing lessons if met with courage, wisdom, and a willingness to change.